I want to talk a little bit how you got into the business you're in now, which is your company, Premier Match, and you match people who are looking, and you have a very select clientele, and you work with a certain group of people. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so as I was going into my 12th year modeling, I was ready again to look for a career change. I had to be realistic. I was in my latter 30s. I wasn't really going to be able to model much longer. So what else could I, do? I was with my husband. He had an aunt who had a matchmaking business in California. And she always said to me, my God, you should do this. You have such a, go-getter attitude. And also, when I was working in PR, and I had a huge network of friends in Manhattan, so I used to hold these big parties in the city. I'd, find these locations, everybody paid 20 bucks at the door, and then they would go in and food and booze would be free. And I have all the Wall Street guy friends from college and all my model friends, so it was great. Wall Street guys, models. So I'd call the guys and be like, you want to go? So they would, these groups of people that would come together, and a lot of them would match up, and I would, I just had an innate type talent to putting people together. I have a memory like an elephant, so I would remember the most minute things about people and then be like, oh my God, you have to meet this person, that person. So a lot of people were matching up and getting into relationships. And so anyway, when my husband's aunt was encouraging me to do this, I thought, well, God, that's an interesting business. How does that work? So we would fly out to California often, and she showed me how the business sort of works. I mean, I wasn't really working there, but I kind of understood it. And I said, I really need to move out to California and work in this office and understand how this operates in order for me to really, put my hands around it and figure it out. But in the meantime, I started to research the New York dating scene, and I wanted to find out what businesses were involved in this and so forth. And then, so back then, the internet wasn't so prevalent as it is now as a dating tool. There were franchise dating services. New York Magazine was like the Bible for the singles in the back section. They had all the little classified ads. And then there were a couple of matchmakers that dealt with a certain niche, whether it be a religion, like there was this Jewish gal that handled only the Jewish clientele, and then there was an Asian woman that only matched Asians with Caucasians or something. That was kind of peculiar. But there wasn't really a service that catered to professionals across the board that really drummed home the pitch of, okay, why not just have, you're single, you're professional, your time is limited, we're here to help you make the right connection, which was basically the mission of what they were doing out in California. And there were a lot of services out there, but not on the East Coast per se. So I thought, well, gosh, there might be an opportunity here. So I went out to California, and I lived out there for about 4 months. I was still modeling, so I would have my fashion accounts, and my husband, was conveniently working for the airlines, so I could fly back and forth to New York, do a job, go back out west, stay there for 3 weeks, come back and do a job. So at least I was still bringing home some income. But it was very helpful for me to see how the business is run, and to take that knowledge after those months and come back to New York. And I still can't even believe my courage when I think of how I did this, but I basically thought, okay, I said, I'm going to do this. I'll start advertising, and I'll start from scratch, and I'll start a business in matchmaking. Crazy.
What was appealing to you about it? What did you find so appealing about this kind of business to enter into?
Well, first of all, I loved it. I felt like I really had a passion for it. Also, I mean, they were making good money out in California with the memberships. And then I think what really drilled it home was when I did the research in New York and saw an opportunity.
What kind of people did you see in California were looking for matches? What is the typical kind of person, and is it different there than it is here?
No, I would say it's about the same. It's really across the board, and now having been in the business and working with people all over the country, I mean, it really is the same everywhere as far as people, they work really long hours. They're not really able to tap into a network of individuals that really fit what they're after, and goals that they have in mind, like-minded, education level and everything else. So anyway, Okay, so where were we as far as the
We
process?
we were
So,
discussing
okay.
about your journey out to California, learning to do it, setting up, and then starting this business. Just coming back and say, I'm going to do it.
I'm going to do it. So I budgeted out $10,000 to start the business. I looked into New York Magazine as the vehicle of where I was going to start to advertise. At that time, New York Magazine was extremely expensive to advertise. A little ad like this big was $2,000 a week. So when you're starting a business, it's like, okay, you know, let's pray that this works. But before I decided to go that route, I started to advertise like a nut. I was calling every girlfriend, every friend of friend, sister, brother, cousin, mother, who was single, to profile them and get their information into my database, because I mean, I seriously had to stock the shelves, per se, of singles that I could then tap into if I was going to match. And you know, everybody was looking for something else. You know, I'd interview one person, then they'd say they were looking for this, and then this one would say, and I'd be like, oh my God, this one would be great for this one. Then all of a sudden they would say they wouldn't go that way as far as, you know, a certain religion or height range. It's just like, okay, that throws that off at the window. So you have to start to really collect a bunch of different people together to match. And so I got together probably about 200 profiles before I really felt comfortable taking the plunge and start to advertise. So I did. I started to advertise. The phone started to ring very quickly after I started to advertise. I started at that time, my retainers were about $2,500 for a full year retainer. So since New York Magazine was $2,000 an ad, I thought, okay, if I could just sign up one person, that'll cover that ad. And if I can sign up another one, that'll cover the next ad. And that's how I started the business. So I was doing okay. I mean, I was still in the red, but it was like coming up. And then 9/11 hit. And then the whole business just was like, everything
What year
just
were you
shut
in
down.
when 9/11 hit? You were still very early on at the time.
Right. I was still modeling a little bit, and I was taking on clients, and I was interviewing. So I was still sort of, I had my foot in the door with modeling, and I was doing the matching. But then when 9/11 hit, everything shut down as far as the matchmaking business.
And you were in New York at the time.
Well, I was telling you on the phone. I was in Houston actually.
Right.
I was doing a job.
That's right.
For I was doing a spokesmodel job for Microsoft. It was a little thing that I was doing still. It was one of my accounts. They had a couple shows a year, but anyway, that's where I was. So it was this kind of, I guess also a tip for somebody that's ready to take a plunge. You know when you get comfortable in a job and it's like you're looking to do, you're trying to transition into another job, but you're still hanging out with that old job. Just don't want to let it go because it's still, you know, guaranteed income.
Yeah.
And then you're just, well, that's kind of where I was at. And then when, of course, we had the tragedy in New York, everything shut down for about 4 or 5 months. So then I started gravitating back to the modeling. But I was still servicing just these few clients that I had with the matchmaking. And then I guess it was maybe around February of '02 that the phone started to ring again with the matchmaking business. And I was doing this ridiculous model job that was okay pay, but I was working really long hours for a full week. And then in the matchmaking, I was able to sign 2 people up during the time that I was modeling that week. And the 2 sales I made was, of course, a lot more than what I was making over here. So that's when I really thought to myself, okay, I need to just shut this door, and I need to now go through and start really focusing on this, and that's what I did. And that's
So
when I
another
retired.
lesson learned, it's you have to make a conscious decision, it's time, and you have to make a full-on commitment, because I think as long as you have 2 feet in 2 worlds,
Yeah.
I don't think you're 100% ever at anything you're doing. Don't say anything, Lori, because I know that I have my feet in 10 worlds all the time. But I think it's really true. You need to be making a full-on commitment to which way you're going to go and what your dedication is to do. And that was really interesting. I think we had, at 9/11, it created a new paradigm shift in our culture, I think, in terms of relationships and love. And because I know during that period, and I was living in Dallas, Texas at the time, the world stopped and held its breath. We didn't know where we were going. We didn't know if we're going to war. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if this was the first attack and then other cities were to follow. We didn't really know. So the world, I mean, and I think every business in the world stopped. I mean, in Dallas, Texas, we didn't see cars on the road, and we were so far away. But we were like everybody else, glued to the TV, wondering what was going to happen.